So here's the Nemesis. And yeah, this tank, you're going to right off the bat say, Fury, this is an E100. I mean, I have the E100. Here's an E100. Is Wargaming running out of ideas? Well, I can answer that, yes. But why is this a tank important, you're probably saying? Why is this anything valuable to me? Why should I invest anything? If it's an E100 in a mercenary role, why would I want it? Well, if you notice the two icons, this is a TD, and that's a heavy. But we're going to break down why they're different. I mean, a lot of people are already seeing the screens differently, but we're going to break this down because this is an interesting tank to talk about, and probably out of all the War K things, is probably the most better out of all of them, but I don't want to get too ahead of myself. So, without further ado, let's check out the armaments. Now, for those who know that this is a straight up E100, I mean, it's flat down E100. You got the tracks inside the thing weak. You got the basically when they shoot through the tracks, and then it can pen through that. But you got to be careful because the upper skirt of the tank, as you could see through this thing, the upper skirt where the symbol of the Marines is spatial armament. So even if you fire AP, it can bounce it off completely, which I love about the E100. You have to literally hit the tracks and then like in between the crack between the spatial armor and that, because if you hit two below it, it won't pen through the tank. But yeah, I like that a lot about that. So obviously that is one of the things I like about it with the bubble armor. And that's like, I don't know what else to say besides E100 players know this. Like, oh, there is a key thing. You want to keep this tank flat, like flat on the ground. Why? Because of this 115 millimeter armor. If this tank is like slightly up in the air and stuff, you could shoot that upper plate green part where it is. Which you see that viewport right there? I'll show you again when you actually see this tank. Oh, skipped a couple pages. Like you see that where the viewport is, and you see that metal there with the little bolt ammo right above the 2 symbol right above it? Yeah, that's weak armor. I have seen so many tier 10s pen through that if you're up there slightly an angle like this. You want to keep this tank as flat as possible, which is a problem because this tank has no gun depression, so this tank fits really well with flat terrain surfaces. Now, I know a lot of E100 players are going to know that right off the bat because this does fit like the E100's playstyle, but these are people that don't have the E100 and just bought this tank or want to get this tank. So I'm just saying that is one of the key thing that is a problem with the tank is the gun elevation and stuff is going to harm you. Obviously the face cheeks, if it gets penned with a high penning gun, because it is literally 240 millimeters. If something can pen through an angle armor of 300, it could easily pen through it. Like heat rounds and stuff can easily pen through it. I've seen that happen. So yeah, and that's basically it, because the rest you can all see where the commanders is, like modules and stuff. It's the same thing like the E100. Ammo place right in the back, long part on the side. Crews are in their place. So again, same kind of setup as an E100. So you're not missing much of if I don't go over it completely. But now we should talk about the main thing, is its gun. Now it says battle cannon, but I guarantee you this is probably the same gun as the E100. So if you look at the E100 real quick and look at its fully maxed out gun, it's a 15 centimeter length 38, which looks exactly the same. So I'm going to consider that being a 15 centimeter as well, because they're the same exact length cannons, I believe. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong for the comments. If it isn't, let me know. But that's not the key thing of what's different about this tank. What is different is the fire rate. So this gun has a unique mode. What do I mean by that? This thing has a different firing modes. And how do I explain this? Um, First of all, instead of talking about this first, let's talk about the ammunition and its costs, because this plays a key role about this tank. So we'll start with the first one, mid-range shooting, mid-shot. This thing costs over 1,260. This thing gives you a 15-second reload. Now, why am I showing you this? Well, each shell has a different time of, time to reload and how much damage you do. And the key thing that's funny about this, all the pens are the same. So it's the same shell, meaning every one of these shells keep 280 to 270 for how long range. That's insane. Like, that's really insane for a type of 15 centimeter. But we'll talk about the difference between the E100 and that in a minute. But my point is, so this thing has a 15-second reload and does like an E100's damage. Premium, on the other hand, has a different shot. For 6,000 credits, this is APCR with 875. This thing is terrifying. Why? Does like almost Death Star or E4's damage of American TD. Why? Well, it's because this thing has an 18-second reload, and the reason why I'm saying that by time, because this is like with a good crew and equipment without ventilations, you probably get it a little bit faster. And this is how it fires in this game. Well, that went from 1 to fuck you in an instant. That changes really fast in how to play this or see how much damage it does. Yeah, pretty fucking terrifying. That was a charged shot to that poor Frenchie. God, this is not a shell you want to mess with. And again, fucking almost do like Death Star damage, so holy crap. And finally, same cost as the first one, rapid shot. This is a fast reloading thing, but it does less damage, up to 350. I do like 320. And this is how it reacts when it fires. Who the fuck is reloading this gun? Like, seriously. I mean, for fuck's sake, why is he not on the supercharged level? God damn. Yeah, it's fucking fast. Like a 7.2-second reload doing that much damage. It's freaking terrifying. So, the reason why I showed you that first, like again, is because you just saw this thing shoots like rapid fire shells. It is so terrifying, and it's a really unpredictable tank. Like, you cannot predict how these shots are going to be fired. You're not going to be predicting how much damage it's going to do. Either it's going to be a charged shot, regular shot, and it's so nuts to think that now. But there is a problem I don't like about it, which we'll talk about it in the game. But still, holy crap. I mean, that is ridiculous. So, back to the gun real quick, now after I just told you each time has a different reload. Because, see, like the fire rate, it says 3.95, which is not true because it depends on what ammo you reload. Either rapid fire gets you really fast, or the mid shot will get you like a medium damage of an E75, not E75, E100's damage. Or you could go like fucking E4's damage and do like up to fucking 800 to 900 almost if you high roll. That's insane. So you couldn't tell which one is which because it says right here, accuracy at 100 meters, 0.31. I'm going to say that for all the shell types because none of them don't change their accuracy or whatever. So yeah, standard E100 15 centimeter. It's got a horrible aim time and stuff like that. So it's going to be sluggish, but you could still make it up pretty good with the type of thing. Now, it says like damage 700. That's because this is the first shell. This is the mid shooting one. But if it was the, premium or the rapid fire, it's completely different. So penetration at 100 meters, and I'm going to say this to all guns because every shell is the same shell. There is no difference. That means if I switch to a premium round, it doesn't increase the damage, it doesn't decrease the damage. So yeah, that is terrifying. So no matter how you face this tank, it's always going to pen up to 100 meters 280, and for 500 meters, that's 5 grids over, because this is a brawler tank, so it's not really designed to snipe as well, is 270. So AP, APCR, and AP. So yeah, you can see, which is a huge problem. I'm gonna say real quick the difference between the E100 and that, because the E100 has hash. So when its premium rounds are activated, it has hash, which is a beautiful round to deal with heavily armored armors. This has APCR, so even though it does more damage, it's still APCR. So if you can't pen something easily, like a head turret or something, you don't want to aim for the heads unless it's very weak. It's one of those tanks that you have to be really careful shooting. Um, so now let's talk about the other things, because I want to get this through this, because there's going to be a lot more to talk about in the game of my opinion on this tank. But still, I wanted to get through this. So HP is actually less than the E100. See, like, I'll show you the E100 real quick. E100 is 2,700. This is 2,100. It loses 600 hit points. But again, it's not noticeably bad, but it's bad enough if you get pen a lot. So yeah, I can understand that. But with the makeup of the gun it has to have some sort of nerf. Speed is the same as the E100. It's 30. Now, this is the part that confuses me. Now, I know I don't have a commander in this, but if when I do, this thing outspots things better than the E100, but that's not saying much, because this E100 cannot see at all. And if you want proof, here's a battle clip showing it. Yeah, like, I'm trying to give you example why. Like, even with binoculars, even with a 9 per crew, with one of them being binoculars, you can't see that well with tanks, and it makes sense because the viewing range is just not good. 440. Now granted, yes, that's not bad for a heavy tank. That's actually better than most tanks, but your concealment is so bad for 240, I mean 24, that people are going to see you before you see them. So that's a problem. And yes, I know what you're all going to say. Well, maybe if you have those perks all being concealment perks, you could do that just fine. But this is an E100 we're talking about. This is a big tank. You're not you're not gonna hide. It's like putting a stick on a house, and apparently your house is grit off of the face of the world. It doesn't work like that. So yeah, this tank has no concealment whatsoever, and it can't see well. However, though, it has a decent radar. So single range is like 909, 96.87. But I think that was because of my commander as well. Let me take a look real quick. Yep, my commander has boost single range, so probably increased it by a little bit. So chances are, if you want to play this tank, you have to play with buddies. You have to play with people because of the fact that it can't see good, it doesn't have a good speed, but if you keep it alive, it will damage any tank. So this is definitely a team role-playing tank. Like the E100 in the tech tree, it's definitely a support role tank. But the weird part is I find it funny how the concealment on this tank, and there's no concealment perks, mind you. You can see all 9 down there. There's no concealment perks. And the E100 has a more better chance at hiding than this E100, which kind of makes you say something there, doesn't it? Okay, so after talking about all that and all that, I'm just trying to get the important stuff out of the way first. Talk about its weaknesses and all that. Its gun, its special ability. Let's get into a game, and I will talk about my personal. So, my personal opinion on the Nemesis. And there's a lot to talk about, so you might see 2 games battle, so bear with me on this. Okay, so let's talk about its looks. Its looks are amazing. I love the art detail and stuff. But it's also an Achilles heel. Why? Well, if you notice at the front end of the gun, it lights up. And this is a double-edged sword. On one hand, looks awesome. Like, out of all the tanks I've seen in history, that it's nice to see tanks looking like a special effects and stuff. But here's the double-edged sword. Every time you reload, it lights up, ready to fire. But the problem is, you can see it, your teammates can see it, but your enemies can see it. The biggest problem I have with the tank that every time I face it, every time I see the lit up thing, I get it out of its way immediately, making it really not really a surprise event when you fire this round. Now, granted, yes, I like the diverse shell thing. It is so cool to have a diversity of like different types of shell firing mechanism. It's really awesome. Like I like the whole give your enemies no surprise. They'll keep them always on their toes and stuff like that. This type of gun, is it going to harm you tremendously, or is it going to just tickle you and then tickle you and tickle you and tickle you? It's such an impressive way to show that this type of tank does work, and it does put fear in the enemies, saying, what shell did he load? Oh god, I know he can only pen 280 no matter what, but he can pen me, and I don't know how much he's going to do. Giving the enemies paranoia. I like that about a tank, and I give so many enemies this kind of paranoia. However, because of that whole light up thing, I personally do not like it. Because it just tells the enemy I'm ready to fire. And it's just so irritating. Now, granted, yes, you could probably get away with it if people are not paying attention to you, but if you're 1v1ing someone and you're trying to attack them, that's a big problem once. Now, granted, yes, if you load the quick round shooter, yeah, you could probably 1v1 someone, but obviously this tank is played more as a team support role. A team support role that changes its tactics every 5 minutes with its gun, which I like that about that tank. It's so diverse, but it's got some problems. Because why? Well, if anyone could tell you that E100 players know this, that 8s can kill you still in this tank. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, your underplate. Your underplate is the weakest part of the tank as well. Like most any other Germans, underplates is the most vulnerable, and since 8s can pen your underplates, and it's 150 millimeters of armor, 8s with tier 9 guns can harm you, and most tier 8s have a lot of tier 9 guns. So you can't caught it in the open. But the problem is you have no gun depression. So when you're trying to aim downwards, you're exposing some of that armor. Or either that, the top part of your top tank that I told you, that thin piece of metal that goes across the very above your tank, is a big problem because I get pinned there a lot. And the problem is with this tank, I've noticed heavily, is yes, you do less damage when you do the rapid fire shot, but you seem to die a lot in this tank. I mean, it's one of those tanks that is really hard to keep alive unless you have a herd of people. And I get it. It's supposed to be the theme of Space Marines. They're supposed to fight as one and attack with no remorse, no mercy for the Emperor himself. But the difference is in tanks, it's like it kind of needs that kind of help kind of way. This ain't no Space Marine game. He's not going to come out of the tank and start chainsawing or things tanked, although that would be awesome to see. No, it's one of those tanks that is mediocrely played thing. And I I mean, the thing that the problem is the most, I know what all of you are going to say right now. Fury, why are you reviewing this now? Why did you get it now? In the freaking War K scenario thing going on, if we get up to high ranking, we can get a discount on it. Well, to tell you the truth, my friend got it for me, and I didn't pay for this. I did pay for the other one, but that was because of an accident. I thought I could do it cheaply by doing it one at a time, but apparently not, since the Reaper Scythe is one of them. Which, by the way, for those who are scared about the Research Scythe, I'm just going to say this real quick. The Reaper Scythe is going to be probably its own bundle deal, because it says on their website that it's supposed to be its own bundle deal, so we'll see how that turns out if I review it. If not, my buddy Saz probably will review it for us. But anyway, back to the Nemesis. So, like I said, the Nemesis is not a bad tank. I think I personally have fun with a lot with it. And if anyone plays the E100 is going to love this tank, especially the diverse shells. Now, does this mean this tank is easy to play? Oh, fuck no. After experiencing the E100 for so long and all that, it is one of my least favorite play tanks that I play nowadays. because I usually play like the Panzer 7 or the premium versions of the same gun, like the I forgot what it's called. I think it's the Panzer 7. I'm just gonna call it the Panzer 7 15 centimeter, gun. And to be honest with you, I like that better than the E100, but that's just my personal take on it. But that doesn't mean I don't disc the E100. I don't. I mean, I like it. But it does make me upset that they pick tier 10s for this stuff, but I understand why people are going to buy it, but yeah, it's just my personal opinion. So the game's about to wrap up soon, so I'm just going to let you guys watch the rest of these games to show you its awesomeness, and thank you, Soldier, for helping me out with the backup, because I needed help with this tank. I even made a post saying, like, hey, I'll put your name on the list if you help me out. So I'll see you guys at the end for the final verdict.
There's no greater glory than a lifetime of dutiful service!
And by the way, I'm not trying to diss this, but it is still part of the thing. I forgot to mention too, this thing makes no money at all. What do I mean by that, audience? Like, it's a tier 10. Tier 10s don't make money because they took away its money earnings. I don't even know like how much it only gives, like 5% XP boost. So that you got to take in factor that of paying for a tier 10. It just doesn't make any money. So it's like a standard tank, even though it's premium. I still don't make the sense of that nowadays. And that's ass. It should have at least, I don't know, maybe 5% silver earnings in a tier 10. Just give it something. Instead of just this crappy, no premium earning thing. I get it why they did that, audience. It's just because they don't want many tier 10 players going up against people that are 8s or trying to get a grinding starting, trying to get money out of their 8s because that's what they can afford. And that's fair because this game is ridiculously expensive. But at this point, Wargaming, all I'm going to say really quick, and I know I don't want to beat around the bush. This high spending shit. This 63,000 for all of this, or 8,000 for the tier 10, 17,000. Now I get it. It goes down, but this has to stop. Like, it's bad enough, like, the 8s right here are 11K, 11,200 for all of that, or just the 675 for that. That's fine. That should be the price of a normal tier 8, just a tier 8 anyways. It's like almost $30. That's perfectly fine. But this has to stop, Wargaming. Like, ugh, I'm sick and tired of seeing major price tag after price tag of new event tanks. And I get it, they have to pay a licensing fee, but at the same time, just no. I don't think it's even worth it getting this much, audience. Like, honestly, if the Reaper tank comes out like it says it's supposed to, which I will give shit at the end if it doesn't come out, all you're doing is buying the two 3D commanders and the rest of the commanders. Unless they have unique voice acting, which, by the way, in case for anyone noticing, I will buy the commander 2D separately in this, like in the commander slot, and get the orc commander and see if it has unique voices. If not, I'm just going to say it in the review when I do them. So, back to the thing a little bit. So, final verdict on the Space Marines E100 Mercenary Premium Nemesis. This one's going to be hard for me. Because on one hand, it's freaking fun. Able to switch shells back and forth, able to do maximum damage, ever give the enemies on their tippy toe edge of what shells you're going to load first, what damage you're going to do against them. so on and so forth. Are you going to be a tank destroyer, or are you going to be an E100, or are you going to be an annoying little bastard of an E75? That's how I see the little gun as sometimes. And to be honest, that is awesome. I like that type of thing, and I think that's really cool for a feature. However, the reality is, it's just so damn pricey. I mean, look at this, 22,750 right now. Now, granted, yes, it does go down when you do the competition to 15%, which I believe it's going to be like 15,000 something. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Like, just tell me which one it would be, because I don't have it up on right now. I'll put it on screen right now to tell you the exact amount when it gets to 50%. So yeah, so that's why I said in the thing, why did you get this? Well, a friend got it for me. So that's is where my review thing is. And honestly, it's a pretty fun tank. Like, E100 players are gonna hands down say, oh yes, 10 out of 10. This tank is beautiful. This tank is golden. This tank can fire multiple different types of shells that change the tactics of firing. Perfect tank. But for me as a tank reviewer, I have to give it an honest thing. It's an E100's playstyle. It's not that easy, and it's not everybody's. I can get that. The gun diversing is a plus. I like that a lot, especially when you could change tactics in a game when you could just do that. I just said that, I know. But at the end of the day, it's a little bit worse E100. Its concealment is way worse than the tier 10 version of the E100. It has less hit points than the E100. And it's got really much a kind of like a survival like thing. Like, it's a tank that I always play and it dies a lot or basically gets screwed up a lot. So this tank is going to take a lot of damage. So not a lot of things to say about it. And plus the lighting, that light at the front of this gun gives the enemy always that central awareness saying, oh, it's about to fire, because you see that flash in a minute of it reloaded. You could just shoot away, and then after he fires, fire and fire and fire at him until you see that flash. Get the hell out of the way. I don't like that, because it gives the enemy time to see that. And I don't like that one. Like I said, I keep saying it, but it gets me killed a lot of times. It gets people not able to shoot because the tanks are supposed to be unpredictable sometimes. It's like it's got an unpredictable reloading shell, but unpredictable, like, predictable thing of seeing like your tank. Uh, and plus, the art detail is actually not bad. I mean, I wish, granted, it did a little bit more detail, but I do like that. I do like the Chaos helmet a little bit on the side. Or is that the Chaos helmet? I can't. I don't think that's the Chaos helmet. I think that's the other Marines. But yeah, I like this a lot. Final verdict, though. I'm gonna say this right now. I don't think it's worth it getting the pack. And I know a lot of people got this now because of this diverse game thing. I don't think it's worth it buying it 22,000 and something gold right now. I would say save your money until the very end of how much you could reduce down. So, yeah, you could do that. More, like, for right now, I think it's way too much. I think it's a 5 out of 10 if you bought this right now. It's way too much money. However, if it goes down in price to 50% and becomes the actual price that it is, yes, it's still going to be expensive because it's a tier 10, but still, I think it would be worth more valuable in waiting, which I would give it a 7 out of 10. Because honestly, it's a pretty fun tank if you're an E100 player. And like I said, if you're an E100 player, don't expect everybody to like this tank because you're not an E100 player. I just had experience of playing this tank for a very long time, and even though it's very hard to play it by yourself and you need teams, it's still a badass of a tank from the past. It was actually my first tier 10, if you want to know a little bit about me. So yeah, 7 out of 10, and I recommend you guys wait until the end to get it, actual thing. If you want to get it, my friend gifted it to me, but at least it's better than other things. Yeah. Stick around, brotherhoods and sisters of the Empire. this one's going to be a doozy once